Mr. Stirrup, opening remarks, 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you very much, AJ. Thank you. I want to thank the Committee 100 for sponsoring this forum. And I certainly want to thank all of you for being here this evening and your interest in good public policy. I know the evening's late, and I very much appreciate everybody being here. I'm John Stirrup. For the last 4 years, it's been my honor and privilege to represent the Gaineville District for the Board of County Supervisors. Let me take a minute and talk to you about what government used to be like in Prince William County on the local level prior to the 2003 election. Fundamentally, I felt it was very unresponsive and unrepresentative. We had a Board of Supervisors that for the 10 years prior to the 2003 election, as an example of how unrepresentative and unresponsive they were, approved essentially every development project that came through the application process, typically by a 5-3 vote. Now this might be good if you would think that they were addressing adequate infrastructure, but that is not the case, and they did not. Schools, roads, police and fire protection. And unfortunately, we're still paying the price for that. I felt that I could do a better job than the 8-year incumbent. And when election day came in 2003, 80% of the Gaineville District rejected the incumbent, and in a three-way race, I was fortunate enough to win. But let me tell you folks, I have not been idle since I've been elected. I had a very definitive outline of what I called commitment to Prince William County, the commitment to Gainesville, what I called the contract for Gainesville, where I outlined my commitments to the citizens. I believe I've delivered on every single one of those, but I've gone beyond that. I've taken on some pretty controversial issues in the 4 years I've been on the board. I've taken on most of the developers that have come to this county, if not all of them. In fact, many of the national developers. A recent example, a developer wanted to come in here and do 6,800 homes in the western part of the county and strain even further our overtaxed infrastructure. And with the help of then Supervisor, now Chairman Corey Stewart, we revealed a lot of things that weren't exposed to the public in that application, and they withdrew it. I've also taken on the largest public utility in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And those of you who have joined me in that fight, you know how well-heeled they are, how well-financed, capitalized, and how well-connected they are in Richmond and the localities. And we're going to win that fight. And you know I've also taken on the very politically incorrect issue of the status quo status of illegal aliens in Prince William County. And we're going to win that fight too, folks.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, would I ask you to hold your applause?
I've served my constituents for 4 years, and I very much appreciate being their advocate. And with your help, I'll return for another term. Thank you very much. I look forward to tonight's discussion.
Corey, 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. I want to thank first the Committee of 100 for putting this debate together. I'm a firm believer in the power of education, the power of awareness for our constituents, for our kids, whatever it may be, to be aware of the issues, to make informed decisions, informed choices. So hopefully by the end of the night, we can have a meaningful, fruitful discussion where we can clearly outline our differences, our different approaches to government, and how under my tenure in office, our county will indeed proceed down a different path. I am Corey Riley. I am running for the Gaineville District Supervisor seat. Back when, I guess that's all candidates do, you sit around the kitchen table and you're saying you're really going to do this, and you talk with your spouse, who always, my wife Sharon, who's always supportive of me and even some of the crazy things I do. And in fact, when I told her I was going to run, first thing she asked me was, am I crazy? So the second thing she ended up asking me was, why do I want to run? So I'll take a little time to talk about that now, and hopefully through the course of this discussion, the course of this debate, you'll know why I'm running, you'll know why I feel I'm the best candidate for this office, and hopefully, if I don't have your vote already, I'll ask for it now, I ask for it at the end of the night, and maybe there'll be a few converts in here, at least some more applause from the crowd here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Miami. Attended Florida A&M University, where I achieved a Bachelor of Science in Biology. After that, I went straight on to grad school, received a Master of Public Health, and continued on to work for the Centers for Disease Control. After spending about a year in Atlanta with the Center for Disease Control, I got the opportunity to come to Prince William County to work on community partnerships and strategic development. Through that experience, through that opportunity, I found one thing, that I love this area. I love the county, the two cities as well, and this whole Northern Virginia area. But I was able to demonstrate that the power of working together, the power of bringing folks together, always overcomes the power when folks try to divide us and pit one side versus the other. The end result of that partnership was one of the things I'm most proud of, is a community health center that's designed to provide the working poor, folks who either aren't offered insurance or cannot afford insurance, opportunity to receive preventative health care. We'll talk a little bit about the proactive approach to government and problem solving versus the reactionary sort of crisis mode government that we've been used to here in the past 4 years. But I firmly believe that if we invest, whether it's in healthcare, the education of our kids, the investment in development, or as current supervisor just indicated, controversial issues around undocumented immigrants or anything else, if we invest early, get in there early, work together, we can come up with much better solutions than what we have been privileged, I guess, to have in some cases over the past 4 years. So I look forward to a vigorous discussion tonight, and I thank you for your time.
All right. Please take our first question. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the last time applause until after it's all over. Please remember, our two timekeepers have kitchen passes that are only good till 10:30. We need to get out of here. All right, first question. Both of you have knocked on doors and talked to thousands of Gaineville citizens during your campaign. In your view, what is the #1 county issue that the people of Gainesville are complaining about and asking you to change? Please explain your position on this issue.
Sure. I'll take that in kind of two stages. The #1 issue is actually, folks have raised to me, is that there's a divisive approach to government being perpetuated in our county. That relates to education. That relates certainly to the sort of elephant in every room now, the illegal immigration and undocumented resident stuff. But certainly, everyone that I've spoken to has had a concern about our elected officials putting our county first, putting the progress of our county and our district first, as opposed to their political progress. But I can speak for a second on the issue side of things. Besides the undocumented residents issue that we have going on, also the growth and development, transportation, all those things that link to that is also a concern. Folks want to see things real done, not some moratorium that happens to end, a couple weeks after the election. Folks want to see something real done. We constantly talk about the 25 to 27,000 homes that are already approved in our county. So the moratorium does nothing for that. I have not heard a good solution from the current Board of Supervisors on how to address those homes as they mature in the development cycle. Developers have the rights, they can build it. Little old me, just want to be elected official. I have actually gone around already to developers and thrown out ideas to them, like, instead of building 1,000 homes or 500 homes, why don't you build 5% less? Put a park. Instead of a couple homes, put a gazebo, retain some trees and open space perhaps. But I have not heard from the current supervisor or the current board, for that matter, solutions like that deal with the real, the now, not some phony or what I think is a phony or sort of a sham of a moratorium that we put on future development. Those homes are in the pipeline. We need to talk with these developers, negotiate with them, let them understand that it's a privilege to build in our county.
Okay,
it's not just a right.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stirrup, would you like me to read the question again?
I appreciate it.
Both of you have knocked on doors and talked to thousands of Gainesville citizens during your campaign. In your view, what is the #1 county issue that the people of Gainesville are complaining about and asking you to change? Please explain your position on this issue. 3 minutes.
Thank you. For the longest time, the #1 issue was transportation and infrastructure that I mentioned in my opening comments. The fact that the board prior to the 2003 election was so irresponsible in approving projects, thousands and thousands of units, particularly in Gainesville and western part of the county, without any care or addressing the need for infrastructure. Often you still see projects that come to us early on that for example, might propose 500 homes and the developer is willing to proffer or consider putting in a turning lane. Well, folks, that's the old days. That just doesn't work in Prince William County anymore. One of the first things we did on the board on that issue was, if we were considering rezoning, we demanded the transportation road improvement dollars up front, not at the construction of the 100th house or the 500th house or the 1,000th house, which is what we're still seeing in some developments in Prince William County now. We changed that. We fundamentally sent a different message to the developers that it wasn't just open season in Prince William County. If you wanted to develop here, you had to address those infrastructure needs, schools, roads, infrastructure, parks, recreation amenities for the people that you were going to house here. But now, the most important issue I hear from, and I heard it just 5 minutes ago out in the hallway again, from constituents on a regular basis, on a daily basis, is, I like what you're doing on this immigration issue, John. It's out of control. It's about time somebody took the bull by the horns and took control of this and said, we are not going to stand for illegal aliens living in this county anymore. Thank you very much.
Rebuttal, 1 minute.
I forgot to reflect upon the happy times knocking on doors, where folks say, go for a core, we're behind you. Some folks who said, I'm not sure if I'm going to vote for you, but I'm happy to see you out there trying hard. It's not merely enough to try hard, but the good, sort of good responses I get from the constituents is also very, very heartening for me. Real quick though, I'm not an economist or an accountant or have any license or degree in economics, but dollars now are not equivalent to dollars later. Where I live, they started building that community about 7 or 8 years ago. Still have not finished the construction on it. If we got all the dollars then, they don't equal $2007. $1999 certainly not equal $2007. So we want to be careful about making it sound good to get all the dollars right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Stirrup, 1 minute rebuttal. Sure, thank you. Please stay there. The next question is yours.
Just a point to address is that totally lost my train of thought, but I'll come back to it. What was the point we were talking about? I'm sorry.
The question dealt with the #1 campaign issue.
Well, again, on transportation and infrastructure improvements, we've sent a different message to developers. They no longer come to us with these large developments. They come to us and ask us now, what would you like to see in the county? What type of amenity is needed in the county? What type of open space would your constituents like to see? What's the shortfall that you have in the area? How can we help you, get to the point which will accommodate all of us? And again, it's just a different mindset. The old days prior to 2003, developers essentially ran roughshod over the board. And it's very unfortunate because, as I mentioned earlier, we're still paying the price for that. Thank you.
The next question, you can stay there, sir. Cheers. With the county experiencing severe budget shortages, why do we see a number of police and fire take-home vehicles at social events such as golf outings and political fundraisers? Isn't this a frivolous waste of taxpayers' money? Plus, are you willing to give up your discretionary funds?
That's a three-part question, I think.
I think they wrote on the margin.
Okay, in terms of police vehicles, there is a take-home program that Chief Dean has initiated. I think fundamentally, if you live in Prince William County and you are a police officer, it's not a bad idea to have a take-home vehicle, particularly if you're in a moderate to high crime rate area. It is not a program that is necessarily fully fundable countywide because it's an extraordinarily expensive situation to have every uniformed officer driving a car. I'm not familiar with officers taking vehicles to political events or fundraisers off duty. That is clearly not appropriate. I have not heard of that in the past, but if that is the case, that's inappropriate and certainly should be reported. Discretionary funds, I'd be the first one to give up my discretionary funds. Thank you.
Would you like me to read, Mr. Riley, read the question again? With the county experiencing severe budget shortfalls, why do we see a number of police and fire take-home vehicles at social events such as golf outings and political fundraisers. Isn't this a frivolous waste of taxpayers' money? Plus, are you willing to give up your discretionary funds?
Okay. To tackle the first question about frivolous waste of taxpayer dollars, I'm not sure if in a position now or even as the Board County Supervisor that we should sort of meddle in what, as we heard in the previous debate, Chief Dean feels is a good policy around community policing. We certainly have a police officer that lives in our community, and it's certainly reassuring, if nothing else, to look down the road and see an officer down there. As far as the political stuff, we probably need to look into that, but I haven't seen it personally myself either. I guess the discretionary funds don't really apply to me now, but I will say this: when given the opportunity, and Mr. Stirrup knows this gentleman well that comes to the Board of County Supervisors probably as frequently as the supervisors, raised the point when we were going through our budget crisis back in April, May, and June, raised the point that our supervisors have, I think, somewhere north of $1 million in discretionary funds combined. We just heard the supervisor say that he would willingly give his discretionary funds up. He had an opportunity to give his discretionary funds up and did not take that opportunity. So when we're listening tonight and we can match words to actions, certainly actions always speak louder than words. So we got to be careful when we say we will do something when we had the opportunity to do it and we did not take that chance.
1 minute rebuttal, Mr. Stirrup.
I'm not sure what Mr. Riley's talking about. This is often the case. The board does get a small allotment on an annual basis. Some members hold it over for several years and accumulate it. I'm not even certain what my balance is. I think it's in about $40,000 or so. I've been very discreet in how I use it. I know I funded a planning charrette for the town of Haymarket a couple of years ago so that they might address some of their growth issues. But generally, it's got to be something that's very much in the community's interest. Fundamentally, I think that the discretionary funds, if the issue will stand on its own merit, it should be a budget item rather than something that the supervisors should have their own discretion on. Thank you.
1 minute rebuttal, yes. And please stay there. The next question is yours.
Sure. I guess the supervisor indicated that I wasn't being clear before. Again, in April, May, and June, when we're going through our budget crisis, we had the opportunity to forfeit or give back or return discretionary funds. He indicated tonight that he would do it. He had a chance to do it. He did not. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. Also, the fact that being unaware of during such tight budget times, being unaware of how much discretionary dollars we have is a little concerning to me, and I would assume to the good folks in the audience. We ask our school system to be responsible. We ask our police and fire to be responsible. We ask our planning committees and planning commissions and everyone else to be responsible. I think the supervisor needs to be responsible and certainly be aware of something as close to his control as how much money has in his discretionary funds.
The next question. Would you support the concept of an inspector general type office for the county to monitor programs and investigate allegations of waste, fraud, and abuse, as well as maintaining a hotline for citizens' complaints?
Short answer is yes. I run a small business, small nonprofit. Certainly know the, besides the revenue side of things, the most common area where funds are lost or there's often a case where funds can be lost or mismanaged if it's not planned for, accounted for correctly. So the short answer to that is yes. Transparency in government, exposing waste, fraud, but also we can take the opportunity to expose the efficiencies, the success stories. When I was with the CDC, we came up with programs that were, best practices. So we can not only look at the negative side of trying to find fraud and waste, but we can certainly look at the positive side, find the things that work, and promote those things that work, share those successes with other areas to improve efficiency overall. So,
okay, thank you. Mr. Stirrup, would you like to read the question again?
Please.
Would you support the concept of an inspector general type office for the county to monitor programs and investigate allegations of waste, fraud, and abuse, as well as maintaining a hotline for citizen complaints?
Yes to both. In terms of the first, the Inspector General, I think it would function best if it was an outside third party reporting directly to the board rather than to any public employee. Secondly, I think the anonymous hotline is an outstanding idea, again, to report waste, fraud, and abuse opportunities that might never come forward otherwise.
A rebuttal if you care to. Please stay there. The next question will be yours. And this is rather long and rather small. This morning, a class action suit was filed in the Eastern Division Federal Court against the Prince William County Board of Supervisors, each individual supervisors, the county executive, and the police chief, requesting an injunction against the proposed resolution passed against illegal immigrants. The suit filed by the Puerto Rican Legal Defense states that the resolution violates the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. What do you see the county doing to rectify this further drain on county money, as it now has to deal with a legal suit filed by the law firm that was successful in stopping Hazleton, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey from enacting similar laws?
AJ, let me just qualify that. I believe the plaintiff was actually the Woodbridge Workers Committee, along with a number of Jane Does that filed. I was served this afternoon as a defendant in that case, and I've been instructed or counseled by our county attorney not to comment on it publicly because it is a matter of litigation. I think many of you know probably what I might say, but I do not want to jeopardize our standing whatsoever in a legal case. So I'm going to have to refrain from any further comment on that.
I understand. Thank you. Mr. Riley, would you like me to read the question again?
Sure.
This morning, a class action suit was filed in the Eastern District Federal Court against the Prince William County Board of Supervisors, each individual supervisor, the county executive, and the police chief, requesting an injunction against a proposed resolution passed against illegal immigrants. The suit filed by the Puerto Rican Legal Defense Fund states that this said resolution violates the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. What do you see the county doing to rectify this further drain on the county money, and it now has to deal with a legal suit filed by the law firm that was successful in stopping Hazleton, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey from enacting similar laws?
Okay. I'm not sure if there's 3 parts or 4 parts, but with respect to the current supervisor and being in the legal situation, I won't go too far into this, but I said this on July 10th, 11th, 12th. No one, it was hard to sort of get your voice heard unless you're walking around saying you are in support of the resolution. But we had an opportunity, and the supervisor had an opportunity in 2004, 2005, 2006, first part of 2007, to do the proper research, to use the county attorney's office, to use the county executive management office, to use the county police, the sheriff as well, to use the other supervisors, all of the other supervisors on the board as well. So we can try to hopefully anticipate and cut off certain challenges to the resolution. So I won't get too far into the legal part of it, but I will say this: we had a chance here. Even if you want to acknowledge that we did have a problem, we had a chance here to do this thing in the right way, to get input in the right way, to not try to silence the voice of the Human Rights Commission weighing in on some of the possible effects. And we squandered that opportunity. And now, unfortunately, some of the byproducts of that lack of research, lack of community involvement going into the process is certainly turned out to be lawsuits. Whether or not you believe in a protest is certainly a form of civic participation that folks have a right to do. So we missed the opportunity early on to sort of preempt and prevent some of the problems that we're seeing now. And unfortunately, a resolution that the supervisor said would have a minimum cost is now costing us $14 million in police and God knows how much in attorney's fees. So,
Okay, thank you. The next question will be for you.
yes, ma'am.
I must offer you 1 minute to rebut if you care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me just say what I can, and that is that this board has been very proactive in addressing the illegal alien issue in this county for several years. We have tried, given being a Dillon Rule state and the limited tools that we have, we've tried through property code enforcement for quite some time. It's been an extraordinarily frustrating experience. Many of you live in these neighborhoods and you know what I'm talking about. These houses have been overpopulated deliberately for years. Often, when inspectors would come to visit, it's self-declaration. We're all family members. Once that happens, the inspector is not allowed to proceed because you can't evict a family or go through any further in the inspection. There's essentially no limitation on the number of family members that can live in one domicile together in Virginia. There are guidelines on separate families and such. We tried that for several years. We had very limited success. We also tried 2 years ago, I offered a resolution to have a state of emergency declared in Prince William County. Unfortunately, I only had one other vote on the board to support that because of the illegal alien issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we've come to, you have 1 minute to rebut them terms.
I'm actually glad the supervisor mentioned the state of emergency comment just then. If y'all obviously pay attention to the papers, pay attention to the Board of County Supervisors meeting, for the Gaineville District and for the county as a whole, everything's at an emergency, at a crisis point. We have the undocumented residents emergency, at the power line emergency, the Heathcote Boulevard emergency, the budget crisis. Why are all of these things getting to the point where we have to take such dramatic steps later on when we had an opportunity to prevent them in the beginning? So I think it's a disservice to our county, disservice to our residents that we allow everything to get to the crisis point before we take the time to invest in the solutions. I firmly believe that our county deserves better. And to walk out somewhat on a limb here, I'll say this. To simply link everything bad to a particular group of people is sort of below us, below our intelligence level. And as I said before, our county deserves better. Yes, there is an undocumented residence issue. There's ways proactively by going after employers to deal with that. But to simply link a group of people to everything bad in the community is certainly, I think, a disservice to our county.
Thank you. Moving on. The next question will be to you. A large portion of the rural crescent falls in Gainesville District. Within that line, there can be no subdivision of parcels for residents use smaller than 10 acres. However, family subdivisions within an existing property is permitted for lots as small as 1 acre. What is your view on family subdivision, and what impact do you think they will have on the future of the rural crescent?
Sure. Obviously, if you're allowed to place more homes into an area that currently doesn't have them, it's going to be some impact on schools. For example, we have the overcrowded issue with schools, and if I'm sure y'all read the paper just yesterday, I believe it was, that Brentsville High School is overcrowded. Battlefield High School is the second most overcrowded school at 125% of capacity. No matter what the current status is, we have the opportunity, we have the information on school data. We know about between 1,800 and 2,000 new students are added to the school system each year. We can sort of predict how many cars is going to come along with that. So we need to plan accordingly. One example where we did not plan accordingly is with Battlefield High School. Our Battlefield High School is I think right at 5 years old, right around 5 years old. Already over capacity. Within the next couple of years, it'll be slated to be the most over capacity school in the district. Why is that? Because we did not invest in the future, in this case of our kids. When given the opportunity, again, during the budget crisis this year, we funded schools less, which caused the schools to delay certain building projects, which guess what, meant we had to use more trailers, had to delay the building of what's I guess called now the Kettle Run School, which will mean Brentsville, Battlefield will continue to be overcrowded. So we need to look at this. I spoke about schools now, but we need to look at the effects of whether it's 10 more homes in the community or 100 more homes in the community. we know what those equal, and we need to look at the effects and address them in the beginning and not just wait to the end. Long story short, I obviously support protecting the rural crescent. I'm sure I agree that's a vital resource for our community, but we just can't be blinded by any kind of pledge that we might sign or any kind of promise that we might make. We must go out there and take action to prepare ourselves for some of the effects.
Thank you. Mr. Stirrup, the same question. Would you like me to read it again?
Please.
A large portion of the rural crescent falls in the Gaineville District. Within that line, there can be no subdivision of parcels for residents use smaller than 10 acres. However, family subdivisions within the existing property is permitted for lots as small as 1 acre. What is your view on family subdivision, and what impact do you think they will have on the future of the rural crescent?
Thank you. First, I don't think there's a stronger proponent of the rural crescent on the board than myself. I live in the rural crescent. I've strongly opposed any development or change into the rural crescent or change the rural crescent line. In fact, I've actually, under my watch, have added acreage to the rural crescent. I believe it is not only the preservation of green space, but as our county now approaches January 1st, 2008, a population of 400,000, I think it is a way to immunize ourselves against an absolute explosive growth, which we cannot possibly tolerate. Family subdivisions, I believe, are in state code and have been for quite some time. And I think, just to clarify the point, I believe you must have a minimum of 10 acres, and you may subdivide out 1 acre for a family member who has to maintain their domicile there for 5 years. I don't see that that would change in Richmond. I think that that's been something in Virginia code for quite some time. I do believe, as a practical matter, though, on a public policy issue, is probably a backdoor way to violate or to get into the rural crescent, where you do see some subdivisions or some development. I hear from you all on occasion, John, how can that house be going in there? It looks like it's a 1 acre parcel when it's in the rural crescent. And I do a little background research, and it turns out it's a family subdivision. And we are seeing more of those. Not a significant number. It's still in the single digits or under 20 or so, but we're seeing a few more of those. Thank you.
Mr. Riley, 1 minute rebuttal.
I'm trying to detangle some of that, because it's actually, I try to use everything as a learning opportunity. I was trying to detangle that, but I was unfortunately unable to. Essentially, again, we know what's allowed, we know what's coming, we know what's available. What are we going to do about it? Again, with schools, we have the opportunity to plan for it. Police and fire safety, and police in particular, with the explosion in population out here in Gainesville, Haymarket, Manassas area. We need to make sure we equip our police force with the amount of officers they need, amount of cars and equipment that they need to protect us. So whether it's 10 acres going to, one home on 10 acres going to 10 homes on 10 acres, or whether it's a subdivision, multi-hundred home subdivision approved. We need to look at the trends, look at the clear evidence, and certainly plan for the ill effects of some of these things.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stirrup, 1 minute.
I think I'm going to pass on.
Okay, fine. I think we've come to the point now for candidates' questions. Are we at that point? Okay, we'll begin with Mr. Stirrup. You have 1 minute to ask a question, and Mr. Riley has 3 minutes to respond.
Thank you.
No rebuttals.
Thank you. Mr. Riley, I'd like to ask you, there seems to be a contradiction in a couple of your public policy positions. You seem to embrace Governor Kane's positions, as I looked at your website, and I think you're there with him in a photograph. And yet, at the same time, you've also announced that you would never support cutting funding for the police. Now, just this week, Governor Kane has announced a cut of about $575,000 to our police department, which is obviously going to make enacting our illegal alien policy, our rule of law policy, much more challenging. So your position seems contradictory. How do you justify embracing the governor's position, his budget-cutting, police budget-cutting position, while you maintain that you support no cuts for the police department?
Mr. Riley, 3 minutes.
I hope that the supervisor is able to separate just two people standing together saying that I embrace everything that the governor says. So I don't know where you've heard a statement that I embrace the cuts in police, but here's the beauty of this thing here. In 2004, again in 2005, again in 2006, the supervisor voted against our county budget that added, on average, 20 police officers to our roads. That's 3 years in a row where he had a chance to do something on a local level that would affect us, not some hypothetical linking from a picture on a website that he just tried to do. He had a real opportunity to add more officers to our streets. And I'm glad he mentioned, the supervisor mentioned, the current resolution. You underfund police officers for 3 straight years, and now we're asking them to do more. Where's the consistency in that? I can't see it. And I'm sure folks in the audience, no matter which side of the aisle, so to speak, that you're on, can't see that. But that just speaks to the inconsistency in not putting action to words that we've seen over the past 4 years. In those same budgets, vote against our teachers, vote against schools, vote against our police. I've mentioned police already. Vote against our fire and public safety. So we can deal with the hypothetical and drawing conclusions from pictures, or we can deal with what's on record with the current supervisor's votes. I do support the police department, unfortunately, because the supervisor did not, in this resolution, apparently it's going to cost the police alone $14 to $15 million. We're going to have some digging out to do when I'm in office. So I look forward to scrubbing the budget, so to speak, finding the efficiencies, and supporting the police department.
You have 1 minute to ask a question of Mr. Stirrup. Mr. Stirrup will have 3 minutes to respond. No rebuttal.
Excuse me. This was actually one of the hardest things to do. I guess I could sort of ask you about why we have underfunded our police, our fire and rescue in the face of continued growth in the county. I could ask you why we underfunded, again, our police officers while asking them to take on more duties. I can also ask you why we underfunded our human services, which form great public-private partnerships to maximize county dollars and also realize the savings of prevention. But in light of the article that I mentioned earlier about Brentsville High School being overcrowded, about Battlefield High School being at 125% capacity and is going to be the #1 overcrowded school in the next couple of years, my question to you would be, what would you do, or what have you done to relieve the overcrowded situation in our schools, the fact that our teachers are paid 9 out of 10 in the region, and the fact that we spend, we're ranked 9 out of 10 in the region on dollars spent per student?
Mr. Stirrup, 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm delighted that you brought that up. Our overcrowded schools are an issue I hear from you on a regular basis. When Governor Kane proposed, and unfortunately our school board adopted, the all-day pre-K program, all-day kindergarten, all-day pre-K is coming, folks, hold on. Our all-day kindergarten program in our elementary schools, many of you came to me and said, well, my child's a 3rd grader. Why is he being bumped out now and pushed into a trailer? And the reason is because now we have all-day kindergarten, and they don't, for safety issues, don't feel comfortable having those students housed in trailers. So they're taking the older students out in our overcrowded schools and pushing them out into trailers. Now, if the governor, who you support and embrace, and perhaps you take exception to this issue as well, is now proposing all-day pre-K, that will even further tax our schools. I've also heard from an awful lot of parents who've said, why does my child have to eat breakfast or eat lunch at 10:30 or 2:30? And it's because they're forced into these situations where you have a 30-minute lunch and 5 or 6 lunches because the governor is driving these programs where we have to have all-day kindergarten, all-day pre-K, and we're overtaxing our schools. Plus, to say nothing about the number of illegal alien students that are in our school system. The lines are drawn with expectations of a certain number of students in a community. There are great examples, statistical examples of expectations of a certain number of houses to develop a certain number of students. Obviously, those homes are overpopulated with students because those students have rapidly increased in the school systems. So my answer is, I think I've taken a pretty proactive stance to address a severe problem in the county that I hear repeatedly from you and from constituents throughout the county is taxing us exorbitantly. The $2.5 million, whatever the estimates are at this point, will pale in comparison to what we will save over a long term. Thank you very much.
We come now to the closing remarks. Mr. Riley, you begin first, 3 minutes. And at the end of his remarks, if you wish to applaud, go right ahead.
It's okay. You can applaud. Again, I want to first thank the Committee of 100 for putting on, again, such a valuable event for our community. I don't think I thanked my wife enough, Sharon, over here in the corner, for standing beside me, behind me, in front of me sometimes, on the campaign trail, knocking on doors, strategizing around the kitchen table while we eat dinner and while I drink Mountain Dew to stay awake sometimes. But so I want to thank my wife, some of my friends and supporters and converted supporters for coming out tonight. First, I want to make sure I get down to the business of the closing remark, which is I want to ask for your vote. I want to ask for your support November 6th. I believe that I bring a positive, proactive approach to government. We often hear from the Board of Supervisors, and particularly from the current Gaineville supervisor, about being against this or anti that. Let's talk about what we're for. As you have heard tonight, I'm for educating our kids, for funding our school system appropriately, not just throwing dollars at problems, but funding the school system in a smart way. The supervisor has said in the past that around the undocumented resident issue that folks want something done. And I have to take a step back and say, no, folks don't want something done. Folks want something smart done, something creative, innovative done, something that will yield positive results for our community, that embraces our community as a whole, excuse me, and gets people involved, engaged in the local politics or a local elected office and public service, not for something that pits one side versus another. So I hope the bar has not been lowered so much that just getting something done, that the supervisor wants to just get something done for him to receive a pat on the back for that. So I want to bring a positive approach to government, to our county. I love living here. We all are very blessed and fortunate to live in this community. And as I said before, with your support on November 6th, I'll certainly continue the work that I'm doing now on November 7th and proudly and ambitiously begin my tenure in office and serve for as long as y'all will have me, or as long as my wife will let me, one or two. So I look forward to speaking to you all tonight. I made a comment at our last forum that I'll stay here all night if it's necessary to talk to each and every one of you, and I'm certainly willing to do that. Again, the bar does not need to be lowered. We need to raise the bar, raise the level of discussion, the tenor and the tone of the debate that's going on now, that it does not divide the community, and instead it brings us together. I chose a simple campaign theme early on in the process. Together we can. I often say it sounds a little corny, but I believe it to my heart. Together we can accomplish more. Whether it's school, education, police, and fire, we can accomplish more for our community. So again, I ask for your support.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Stirrup, 3 minutes.
Again, AJ, thank you very much. The members of the Committee 100, I very much appreciate you providing this forum, and I certainly want to thank everyone here who has stayed late into the night on a school night to be here, and thank you for your interest in good public policy. I'm opening my remarks this evening by telling you, as I say at every public meeting, that it is an honor and privilege to serve you as the Gaineville District Supervisor. And I take that extraordinarily seriously, and I take public service very seriously. And I think ultimately it's because the trust of the public is placed in our hands. You know, one of the very first things, or actually the very first thing I did formally as supervisor after I was sworn in January of 2004, is I held an open house at the Gaineville District Supervisor's office on a cold Saturday morning. And I didn't invite just Republicans or just supporters or people who voted for me or contributed to my campaign, but it was wide open. It was an open house to all citizens that I represent in Gainesville. And that's how I approach public policy. Regardless of where you are, what your position is, if you have an issue, you're going to be represented, you're going to get a voice to support that issue. We may not always agree on everything, but you will be represented, and you will have time to talk to me about it. I haven't just marked time while I've been your supervisor. I think I've been very innovative. I've had 14, next week will be the 15th town hall meeting. I think I've somewhat institutionalized that in Prince William County. They've been small, they've been extraordinarily large, they've been topical, they've been informative. We've got a great website, we've got an electronic newsletter that we send out to about several thousand of you to try to share information and communicate better. We've worked for and have found answers to the challenges that face us. And there will continue to be challenges in Gainesville. As we continue to grow and live in the shadow of the nation's capital, we will always be uniquely challenged. But I firmly believe that the end deliverable here for Gainesville is something that I talk about frequently, and that is that we are moving toward world-class community status. I believe all the factors are there, and they're all coming together. And I want to be there, I want to remain as your supervisor to help lead us to that position. I want to thank you very much for your consideration. I ask for your vote to return me to the Board of County Supervisors. Thank you very much for listening.